opening lines. Avinu Malkeinu Chatanu Lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu En Lanu Melech Ela Ata. Avinu Malkeinu Aseimanu Leman Shemecha. Avinu Malkeinu Chadesh Aleinu Shana Tova. Avinu Malkeinu Batel Me'aleinu Kol Gezerot Kashot. Avinu Malkeinu Batel Machshavot Soneinu. Avinu Malkeinu Hafer Atzat Oivenu. Avinu Malkeinu Kalet Kol Tzar Umastin Me'aleinu. Our Father, our King, we have sinned before you. We have no king other than you. Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of happiness. Inscribe us in the book of deliverance. Inscribe us in the book of prosperity. Inscribe us in the book of merit. Inscribe us in the book of forgiveness. Avinu Malkeinu, say leman ba'e ba'eshu v'mayim al kiddushimcha. Do it for the sake of those who went through fire and water, for the sake of your holy name. Father, our King, pay recompense to those who spilled the blood of innocents. Do it for your sake, if not for our sake. Do it for your sake and save us. Do it for the sake of your great compassion. Do it for the sake of your great and awesome name by which we are called. And let's all join in Avinu Malkeinu, the traditional melody. It's on page 39. Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu. Kim banu maasim. Aseimanu tzedakah v'chesed. Aseimanu tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshi'enu. And now we're going to I have a different rendition. Yes, we're going to switch. It's also the same author and composer, but a different composition. North Dakota State University, they're singing it. Barbra Streisand's is a copyrighted version, so we get in trouble when we do that. But this is a chorus. Go ahead, listen to them. Choir's
Avinu Malkeinu
It's primarily with Facebook. Primarily with Facebook.
Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai. Ein k'ma'asecha. Malechutecha malchut kol olamim. וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עוז לעמו והרחמים היטיבה ברצונך את ציון תמנה חומות ירושלים תבנה חומות ירושלים כי בכל לבן בטחנו מלך אל רם ונישא אדון עולמים ויהי בנשוא אהרון ויאמר משה קומה אדוני ויפוצו אויביך וינוסו משנאיך מפניך כי מציון תצא תורה כי מציון תצא תורה ודבר אדוני ירושלים ברוך שנתן תורה תורה ברוך שנתן תורה תורה לעמו ישראל בקדושתו
Berach
There we go. Now, this is the button. We're all set. Good. Okay. Aretz, ki chol v'shamayim u'ba'aretz. Cha Adonai, hamamlacha v'mitnaseh l'chol rosh. Romemu, romemu, Adonai Eloheinu, v'ishtachavu l'adam raglav kadoshu. Romemu, romemu, Adonai Eloheinu, V'ishtachavu l'adam raglav kadoshu, ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Please be seated. I'm going to introduce the Torah reading, and I have a series of readings. Originally, I thought to do it between each aliyah, but I realized that given what we're trying to deal with here, it becomes too complicated. So I'm just going to introduce the reading, and then I'll have these recordings for you, modern variations on the take on this portion, which is the Akedah. So we're going to be reading for the second day of Rosh Hashanah, page 47. Don't put it up yet on the screen because I'm going to do the readings first. So this is a follow through from yesterday. In yesterday's reading, we have the birth of Isaac, and now almost the death of Isaac. You're familiar with the story that God tells Abraham, take your son. He does not hesitate, and only last minute is Isaac spared, a ram is offered in his place. So, we're all familiar with the saying, I'll fight to the last drop of your blood. That's basically what Abraham is doing. He's going to show his loyalty to God at Isaac's expense. Is that good? Well, we know that God spares Isaac, and the message is that God will pull back from the final ultimate demand, unlike the other gods of the pagans, who had no problem about demanding the firstborn or the secondborn or the unwanted or exposing the infants on the mountaintops as the Spartans did and the Romans did. Right? No, we watch for our children. That is one of the things that we are taught from this. We will not give, as one of the prophets said, "Ten pri bitni chatat nafshi," would I offer the product of my womb for an expiation of my soul? That is not possible. But we have many, many, many takes on this of all sorts. And so what I have done is pulled out ancient and modern sources from the Midrash, from medieval poems from the time of the massacre of Jews during the Crusades, down to our modern period in which Jews fought for the state of Israel, offered up their children, to the modern period where Americans have offered up their children for ideals of America. So we go ahead, without too much ado, and I'm going to just start playing these selections one after the other. I'm going to welcome our members here, first with Judy. Go ahead. Judy Alcala.
What went on in Abraham's mind and in Isaac's mind? They walk in silence for 3 days after all.
This one.
On in Abraham's mind and in Isaac's mind. They walk in silence for 3 days after all. The rabbis imagined what must have transpired. The Torah tells us that God called to Abraham, "Take your son." "But I have 2 sons." "Which son?" "Your only son." Both are the only son, one for one mother and one for the other mother, the one whom you love. Are there limits to my love? I love both. Isaac. Abraham and Isaac come near the selected site of the slaughter. Why did Isaac ask, my father, where is the lamb?" The angel of death approached Abraham. Old man, have you lost your heart? The son who was born to you at the age of 100, you are about to slaughter him." "Even so. Isn't he testing you beyond your limits?" "I can stand even more. If tomorrow he accused you of murder for murdering your son, even so." The angel of death realized that he could get nowhere with Abraham and proceeded with Isaac. "Son of the poor, saddened woman, this man is going to slaughter you." "Even so. But think of all those trinkets and goodies your mother made for you. Your hated brother Ishmael will inherit them all, and you will get nothing." At this point, Isaac began to have his doubts. Then he said, my father.
Jew express the fate of the Jewish people in the shadow of the Holocaust. The following is interpretation by the Israeli poet Amir Giloba, who wrote Isaac in 1953. Isaac. Toward morning the sun strolled in the forest, together with me and with father. My right hand was in his left, like lightning flash, a knife between the trees. And I fear the terror of my eyes opposite the blood of the leaves. Father, come quickly and save Isaac, that no one may be missing at the noon meal. It is I who am slaughtered, my son, and my blood is already on the leaves. Father's voice choked, his face grew pale, and wanted to scream, writhing not to believe. And I opened my eyes wide, and I woke. Bloodless was my right hand.
Okay. Every parent is an Abraham, every child is an Isaac. We don't raise our children to be wild and lawless. We raise them with a goal in mind. The last selection of readings for the Akedah deals with the psychology of feelings rather than faith. Here is the interpretation of the Akedah by the contemporary American poet Ruth Brin. It is Abraham and Isaac in rotation, musing over the experience.
Abraham. I dreamed that my firstborn of Sarah would be the father of a great nation, a nation as numerous as the sands of the sea, as bright as the stars of heaven. I taught him to be a chieftain, but I forgot that God demands of us our firstborn. It is easier when they are infants, but now I know the lad, slender and quick. He leans against me, and my hands rest on his curly head. How can I do what I must do? O my God, I would give back every promise thou hast made me for the life of my son, my only son, Isaac.
Isaac. My father led me up the mountain, tied me down on the uneven faggots with my head thrown back. I saw his hand, the knuckles white, clutching the knife with the jagged edge. I knew that when my throat was cut and my blood running out on the ground, death might not come before the burning. But then my father's hand stopped in midair, and I heard the angry bleating of the ram.
Abraham. O God, I know thee now, not as a maker of covenants, but as the giver of life. I pray to thee, let my son dream his own dreams, not mine. Let him make his own promises to thee. Let him live the life thou hast bestowed upon him, as thou and he see fit.
My father used to teach me many things, so I could learn to be a great chieftain. But since we went up to the mountain, he is quiet and gentle, and only tells me that as I grow older, I too will speak with God, when I wander in the fields at eventide, and sometimes watch a caravan pass by. I think about my father finding the ram, and I wonder what God will require of me.
The end.
The Midrash merely reflect the reality that to be born a Jew was to be born the lamb to slaughter of legionnaires, crusaders, Cossacks, pogromists, and Nazis. Here is a poem reflecting the agony of Jews during the Crusades. They chose death in sanctification of God's name, and saw themselves as the real Isaacs being offered on the altar. In many cases, entire communities committed suicide, and fathers literally drew the slaughterer's knife across the necks of their own children. Here are the words of those who witnessed it. O Lord, mighty one, dwelling on high, once over one Akedah, angels cried out before thee, but now how many are butchered and burned? Why over the blood of children did they not raise a cry? Before the patriarch could in his haste sacrifice his only one, it was heard from heaven, do not put forth your hand to destroy. But now, how many sons and daughters of Judah are slain? While yet he makes no haste to save those butchered or those cast on the flames. On the merit of Akedah at Moriah, once we could lean, safeguarded for the salvation of age after age. Now one Akedah follows another, they cannot be counted. How the outcry of the children rises. Trembling, they see their brother slain. The mother binds her son, lest he be blemished as he startles. The father makes a blessing before slaughtering the sacrifice. To the mothers in grief, the tender children say, offer us up as a whole burnt offering, we are wanted on high. With their fathers, the sturdy young men plead, quick, hurry to do our Creator's will. His father tied him who was offered on Mount Moriah, who prayed he should not kick and disqualify the slaughter. But we, without being tied, are slain for his love.
Margaret, many
Bye.
The door it opened slowly. My father he came in. I was 9 years old, and he stood so tall above me. Blue eyes, they were shining, and his voice was very cold. Said, I've had a vision, and you know I'm strong and holy. I must do what I am told. I'd been started up the mountain. I was running, he was walking, and his axe was made of gold. The trees, they got much smaller, the lake a lady's mirror. We stopped to drink some wine, then he threw the bottle over, broke a minute later, and he put his hand on mine. Thought I saw an eagle, but it might have been a vulture. I never could decide. Then my father built an altar. He looked once behind his shoulder. He knew I would not hide. You who build the altars now to sacrifice these children, you must not do it anymore. A scheme is not a vision, and you never have been tempted by a demon or a god. You who stand above them now, your hatchets blunt and bloody, you were not there before, when I lay upon a mountain, and my father's hand was trembling with the beauty of the word. And if you call me brother now, forgive me if I inquire, just according to whose plan. When it all comes down to dust, I will kill you if I must. I will help you if I can. When it all comes down to dust, I will help you if I must. I will kill you if I can. And mercy on our uniform, man of peace or man of war, the peacock spreads his fan.
Margaret.
This last reading by Leonard Cohen, and it was written during the time of the Vietnam War. We think of the terrible price that American soldiers paid in that war. And it takes us to the 20 years war in Afghanistan, terrible price that Americans have paid to try to bring order. And now with the terrible evacuations of refugees and so on, we see how difficult it is to bring order into the world. Indeed, very difficult. So let us go with that right into the Torah readings. And we find them in the Mahzor. Back to, okay, and we can go back to the Mahzor to page 46 and 47 for the Torah readings. 46 and 47 for the Torah readings. And we have 5 aliyahs. Okay, first aliyah, Joe Alexander, Yamod, Yudanach ben David Shaga, Bimkom Kohen, verses 1 through 3. One more. Yeah. This is it there. Right here. Right here. Go ahead. This. Baruch Hanam Baruch Hanam
Baruch Hanam Baruch L'Olam Poet Baruch Atinor Haimech Olam Asher B'Chabonim Mikolu Amim V'Natan Lanu Et Torah Baruch Atu Adama Notein HaTorah.
Amen. Vayhi Achad B'Yom Ha'ele V'Elohi Nisat Abraham B'Yom Ha'elav Abraham B'Yom Ha'hineni V'Mekach Na'ed Bincha Et Yichidcha Asher Ahavta Et Yitzchak Lech Lecha El Eretz Hamoria Ha'elehu Sham Lola Al Achad HaHarim Asher Amar Elecha. Okay. וישכם אברהם בבוקר ויחבוש את חמורו ויקח את שני נעריו איתו ואת יצחק בנו ויפקע עצי עולה וקם וילך אל המקום אשר אמר לו האלוהים.
ברוך אתה ה' העולם אשר נתן לנו תורה ואמת חי עונת בשר Baruch Ato Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Second Aliyah, verses 4 through 8. 4 through 8. Yamod David Shagab, Yudanach ben David Shagab, Levi.
Baruch Hu Adonai HaMavarach.
Baruch Hanavach.
Baruch Hanam Baruch L'Olam Voed. Baruch Adonai Melech L'Olam. Asher B'chabonim Mikol Olamim. V'natan Lanu Es Torusoi. Baruch Ato Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Vayisa Abraham et Eina, vayar et hamakom merachok, vaymer Abraham el na'arav, shu lachem po im hachamor v'ani, v'ana'ar nelcha ad ko v'nishtachave v'nashuv elechem, v'yikach Abraham et atzei ha'olah, v'yasem al Yitzchak beno, v'yikach b'yado et ha'esh, v'et hamakel v'chushnehem yachdav.
No. Torah. Vayom Yitzchak. Shene Yachad. Shene Yachdav.
Shneim yachdav. Okay, that's it.
Shene
That's it. That's what I just did.
No.
That's what I just read. That's it. Yeah. No, wait a minute.
No.
Hold on.
Vayom Yitzchak.
יצחק אל אברהם אבי, אומר אבי, הנני בני, ויאמר הנה האש והעצים ויעשה לעולם, ויאמר אברהם אלוהים יראה, לא עשה לעולם בני ויחו שניהם יחדיו. Okay, correct. Correct. It's the same word twice.
ברוך אתה מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, חיים נתן בסכנו, ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
יעמוד מאיה בן משה.
And we continue verses 9 through 12. Until
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Hanam
Baruch Adonai Hamborach leolam ba'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. דבר למקום אשר אמר לו אלוהים ויבן שם אברהם את המזבח ויערוך את העצים ויעקוד את יצחק בנו וישים אותו על המזבח מעל העצים וישלח אברהם את ידו ויקח את המקלת לשחט את בנו ויקרא אליו מלאך אדוני מן השמיים ויאמר אברהם ויאמר הנני אל תשלח את ידך אל הנהר אל תעש לו מאומה כי אתה ידעתי כי ירא אלוהים אתה לא אספת את בנך את יחידך ממני. Okay. ממני. ויישא אברהם את עיניו וירא והנה עיל אחר נאחז בסבך בקרניו. וילך אברהם ויקח את העיר ויעלה לעולה תחת בנו ואברהם שם המקום אדוני יראה.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
It's supposed to be תחת בנו. That's one sentence. Okay, here we go. So verse fourth Aliyah verses
What do I read right here?
verses 14 through 19.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead.
Baruch atah Adonai Hamborach. Baruch, right here, right? Baruch atah Adonai Hamborach. Baruch.
The next one.
Oh, the next one. Baruch atah Hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai Hamborach olam va'ed. I already did this one. Baruch this one here. I just said it twice, Joe.
No, the next time.
Oh, this.
Baruch.
But it's hard to see. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar bo mikol ha'amim. That Torah Baruch atah Adonai Netan HaTorah.
Amen.
Thank you, Joe.
ויקרא אלוהים, ויקרא אברהם שם המקום ההוא אדוני יראה אשר יאמר היום באדוני יראה ויקרא מלאך אדוני אל אברהם שנית מן השמיים ואומר בי נשבעתי נאום אדוני כי יען אשר עשית את הדבר הזה ולא חסכת בנך את יחידך כי ברך אברכך והרבה את זרעך ככוכבי השמיים וככל אשר על שפת הים וירש זרעך את שאר אויביו יתברכו בזרעך כל גוי הארץ עקב אשר שמעת בקולי ויישא ויישא אברהם אל נעריו ויקום וילכו יחדיו אל באר שבע וישב אברהם בבאר שבע.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chale olam na'oteinu. Baruch atah Adonai notein chatorah.
Amen. The fifth Aliyah, verses 20 to the end of the paragraph.
Yes, she's good.
Amod Bracha.
אני צריכה את המשקפיים שלי.
בעל-פה. ברוך
אני צריכה... ברכו את אדוני המבורך, ברוך כלל בעת, ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו בכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו, ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
ויהי אחרי הדברים האלה בגד לאברהם לאמור, הנה ילדה מילכה גם היא בנים לנחור אחיך, את עוץ בכורו ואת בוז אחיו ואת כמואל אבי ארם ואת קשת ואת חזו ואת פילדש ואת ידלף ואת בתואל ובתואל יעד את רבקה שמונה אלה ילדה מילכה לנחור אחי אברהם ופילגשו ושמע ראומה ותלד גם הוא את טבח וגחם ואת נחש ואת מעקה. ברוך.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו, ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Okay. Now we pray for those who are ill. For the share screen. There. To go here. And we pray for those who are ill. We have the list of names. Oh, I need to go back and forth.
You have.
Carmen, can you put that back up? And then I'll put up the names. I'll play this. Okay. So take the share screen.
You have it? I have it.
Yeah, I have it. We have it. I'll just share on mine. Okay. Go ahead and share screen on yours then. Yeah. Good, there we go. Now we have the list. So we're going to pray to all those who are ill, for all those who are ill. Mishaberach Avatenu B'cham Yitzur Yaakov, Sarif Karach Hebeleya, Yoreh Virapeh Tacholim, Joe Alexander, Roger Rosen, Harriet Levins, Ronnie Duran, Moise Ben Manya, Liva Batsara, Hannah Sarah Leah Bat Rachel, Sophie, the friend of Judy Alkali, Alan Whalen, Rabbi Emmanuel Zadok, Barbara Mormon, Judy Alkali, Rachel Lalo, Robert Drato, Louis Jacobson, Hannah Batsara, Hannah Sarah Bat Kayla Alta, Irina Sepian, Lava Masha Ben Sarah, Leonard Wallach, Marcy Kelchik, Richard Zeller, Susan Tuchman, Shirley Marco, Eliel Ben Chana, Shoshana Batsara, Erna Nissan, Jennifer Fraser, Herb Mormon, as well as all those who have been affected by COVID-19 virus, and those in the East Coast who have been suffering from the ravages of the hurricane.
Stephen Ben Moshe Wolf.
Stephen Ben Moshe Wolf. Carl Flax. Adam Flax.
Esther Rachel Batsiva.
Esther Rachel Batsiva. Ron Rothman. Tito and Gabi Gorodicho. And Jonathan Tribich. And for those who are suffering from the fire, the damages of fire here in California, they all come out safe. We pray for all of them. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimelech Rachamim Aleim, Lachzikan Rafotam, Yishlach Lemehera, Kosh Lemal Chavev Megedem B'toch Shachol Yisrael, Kvot Nefesh Shuvot Guf, Chagi Melizok, Hashem Koribin Amen. May the Holy One send them healing both in body and in mind to them and to the whole house of Israel. To all who are ill, let us say Amen. And now we're going to go to this screen share, and we have a beautiful rendition by one of our members, Andrea Basilev.
Avotenu mikor habracha misheberach avotenu mikor habracha limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach Imotenu mikor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Thank you, Andrea, for that beautiful rendition. Now we're going to go ahead. Chatzi Kaddish. Yeah. And then the Amen.
Amen. Yehesh me'eraba mevora olam ve'ol maya yisborach ve'yishtabach ve'yishpuar ve'yisromam ve'yisnaseh ve'yishadar ve'yisaleh ve'yisalom shemei lekodisha berichu Elam and Kol Berachata Veshirata Tosh Bechata Venech Emata Damiram Ve'olma Ve'imru Amen.
Okay, Hag Ben Galila, strong arms.
Wait a minute, no, Mafta.
Hag Ben, this is
Mafta the other, yeah.
Okay.
So.
Marcelo, okay, 1, 2, please rise. Zot Torah shesam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai yad Moshe es hayim מחזיקים בה ותומכיה מאושר. עץ חיים היא למחזיקים בה תומכיה מאושר. דרכינו עלינו בכל נתיבותינו השלום. דרכינו בכל נתיבותינו השלום. די 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 די. Okay, Maftir reading, and I'll take the Maftir Aliyah. We found on page 48 in the prayer books, and there's no reason to put it up on the screen because it's very short reading. And again, as we did yesterday, it's the same reading, just a list of the offerings that were given on the first day of the 7th month, as it was called, not the beginning of the year, but the 7th month, sacred month, you may call it, the sabbatical month. And by doing this, we feel ourselves connected to the ancient people of Israel, whose form of worship was in the ancient temple, in the sacrificial service there. It's like a you were there type of reading. So we go ahead.
Yamot Harab Nachman ben Harab Zeh Mafti.
Baruch Hu Adonai Borach.
Baruch Adonai Borach Le'olam Bo'ed.
Baruch Adonai Borach Le'olam Bo'ed. Baruch Adonai Mecholam Asher B'chabanu V'Kol Amim V'Natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. ובחודש השביעי, באחד לחודש מקודש יהיה לכם כל מלאכת עבודה לא תעשו. יום תרועה יהיה לכם. עשיתם עול הריח ניחוח לפר בן בקר אחד. עיל אחד כבשים בני שנה 7 ימים מנחתם. סולת בלו בשמן 13 לפר, 12 לעיל, יסרון אחד לכבש אחד לשבעת הכבשים, ושעיר עזים אחד חטאת לכפר עליהם, מלבד עולת החודש ומנחתה, ועולת התמיד ומנחתה, ונזכם כמשפטם לריח ניחוח אישה לאדוני. ברוך אתם בחלום. Asher natan lanu Torah emet b'chaim b'tocheinu baruch atan noten haTorah. Strong arms again, Marcella. You're drafted. You're drafted.
Oh, I can't.
That's okay.
Zot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai v'yad Moshe. עץ חיים היא למחזיקים בה ותומכיה מאושר. עץ חיים היא למחזיקים בה תומכיה מאושר. דרכיה דרכי נועם בכל נתיבותיה השלום. דרכיה דרכי נועם בכל נתיבותיה השלום. די 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 די. Okay, after our reading, you can find it in the Machzor on page 56 and 57. Can put it up on the screen. I'm going to chant it here. I'll chant excerpts from it. Next page, 56. Up to 56. A little more. Go ahead, up one more. And one more. That's the blessings. Very good. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher b'cha b'nviim tovim tzaveh divreihem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah v'Moshe avdo Yisrael amo v'yitzedek v'hem v'tzedek. Go up, scroll up one more page. The other way. So I had one. There we go. halfway, and keep on going. Keep on going to the next page. That's it. Okay, now we have the second, the haftarah for the second day, taken from Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah. We repeat the theme of the mother longing for her child. As Sarah is looking for a child, has no child. The second day, Sarah's not there on the second day that we read. Where do we see Sarah? The next portion, Chaye Sarah, Sarah is dead. So the rabbis connect and say, the thought that Abraham could have dared to think of taking Isaac up and taking him on the altar, it was too much for her. She couldn't take it. All right, this is the idea of the mother looking out for her children. So the connection being, the children of Israel have just been defeated and taken off into captivity. And they're going past the grave of Rachel, one of the mothers of Israel. And she refuses to be consoled. And God says, no, no, I will watch for your children. And then he has the line, and we're going to use that line later on, Haben Yakeli Ephraim. Ephraim, the northern kingdom, which was destroyed already a century before, is my dear child. I will bring them back. I will bring the children of Judea back, all of them, because Rachel is from Ephraim, right? Joseph is Rachel's son. I will bring them back, I promise you. And that there's that faith that held Jews together, that promise over 2,000 years. We see the return in our lifetimes in the rise of the state of Israel. So that is our haftarah. So I'm going to read just a selection from it. Ko amar Adonai matzachem bamidbar am sridei harev aloch l'argio l'Yisrael merachok Adonai nira li v'avat olam avtich al ken mashachti chesed od avnech v'nivnei b'tulat Yisrael od ta'aditu payich v'yatzat b'mchom mesachakim od titi kramim b'harei Shomron natu notim v'chilelu yesh yom kar'u notzim b'har Ephraim kum v'na'ale Tzion el Adonai Eloheinu Yeho amar Adonai ranu liYaakov simcha v'tzalu berosh hagoyim hashmiu halelu imru hosha Adonai et amech et sherit Yisrael. I'm going to go ahead. Oh, Adonai kol barama nishma nehi bechi tamrurim rachel mevaka baneha me'ana lehinachem al banea ki einenu ko amar Adonai mini kolech mi bechi ve'enach midima ki esachal lepulatech num Adonai shavu me'eretz oyev v'yesh tikva la'acharitech num Adonai v'shavu banim legvulam shamo shamati Ephraim mitnoded yisatani v'yivaser ke'egel lo lumad hashiveni v'ashuva ki ata Adonai Elohai ki acharei shuvi nichamti v'achehi badi sapakti alerech boshti gam nichlamti ki nasati cherpat nurai haben yakeli Ephraim ve'im yeled shashuim ki medelav ribo zachar eskerenu od al ken chamumei lo rachem arachamenu num Adonai. Let me continue the blessings. Baruch atah mechalam tzur kolamim tzadik b'chol roto ela ne'eman homer v'yoseh hamdabem kaim shekol devar v'emet v'tzedek ne'eman ha'leneinu v'ne'emin v'recha baruch Adonai ha'el ne'eman b'chol devarav rachem al Tzion ki beit chayenu v'lev nefesh Toshiach Rabbeinu baruch Adonai mesamech Tzion b'vaneha samchenu ne'ehenu v'elan v'yavdech malchut beit David mishichecha baruch Adonai magen David al haTorah v'al havodah v'al hanvi'im v'al yom Hag Yom. There we go. Yom HaZikaron Hazeh shenatat leheinu lichavod v'tifaret al hakod ne'nachamodim lach u'varchim otach yitbarek shimcha b'shika hay tamid l'olam ba'ed udv'chaimet v'kem la'ad baruch atah Adonai melech hakol haaretz mekadesh Yisrael melech hakol haaretz mekadesh Yisrael melech hakol haaretz Amen. Now let's go to the prayer for the country. Prayer for the country. And it is found on page 66. 66. And we'll just read it. Go ahead. Esther, you want to lead it? Rosa, but come up to the microphone here. This the middle mic. No, use the middle mic. Just the middle mic. Yeah. Yeah. That's on. That's it. Go ahead.
Our God and God of our ancestors, we ask your blessings for our country for its government, for its leaders and advisors, and for all who exercise just and rightful authority. Teach them insights of your Torah that they may administer all affairs of state fairly, that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom may forever abide in our midst. All together now, Creator of all flesh, bless all the inhabitants of our country with your spirit. May citizens of all races and creeds forge a common bond in true harmony to banish hatred and bigotry and to safeguard the ideals and free institutions that are the pride and glory of our country. May this land, under your providence, be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all people in peace and freedom and helping them to fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they experience war anymore. And let us say, Amen.
Thank you. And yesterday, I couldn't get the sound to work. I had this beautiful rendition with cantos from around the world. And I just found, in fact, I found another which I'll play on Yom Kippur, which is cantos around the United States. But I will get this to work. Now, I want you to enjoy this one. Good. That's it.
Mil panem
throw it to the ark there. I got it for work so you could enjoy it. So I found another one. I'll do it for Yom Kippur, where it's all great American cantors joining in. So the same setup. Now we return the Torah to the ark. We're going to go page 68 and then 70, 69 and then 72. But don't put on the page because I'm going to switch to a music rendition in just a second. So we'll start with the Hallelujah. All together, take the Torah. That's it, 2 arms. Good, good, good. Joe, I'm going to have you call the shofar blast for me. Okay, I'm going to give you a job. Okay, almost done. All right. All together. Ya'alelu Hashem Adonai, ki niskaf shemo levado, hodo al'eretz v'shamayim, vayarem keren le'amo, tehila lecho chasidav, livnei Yisrael am kerovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. And now I have this fresh version. Let's see if we get it going. B'chol netivoteha shalom. Ashihi v'heinu Adonai elecha v'nashuva. Chadesh, Chadesh yameinu, Chadesh yameinu kekedem. Now we come to the moment that everybody waits for, which is the shofar blowing, the official shofar blowing. I need somebody to call the notes. The kiyash, varim, through Jody, and you call the notes. Marcel, you'll take the other shofar. We're going to give it a try. Huh? Going to give it a try. And they say the blessing first. It's page 77. Okay, we're going to try to, Baruch Atana Mecholam Ashik Shanaf Sotar V'Tzivanu Lishma Kol Shofar. And then I'm going to say Shechiyanu for those who may not have heard it before. And this might be the first time. Baruch Atana Mecholam Shechiyanu Kiemanu Iganu Lazman Hazeh. So Tekiya.
Tekiya. Shavurim. Teruah, Tekiya, Tekiya, Shavurim, Teruah, Tekiah, Shavurim, Teruah, Tekiah.
May the sounds coming out of this shofar be acceptable to you. Blessed are you, Master of Mercy. And next set.
Tekiah, Shavurim, Tekiah, Tekiah, Shavurim, Tekiah, Tekiah, Shavurim, Tekiah.
Blessed are you, Master of Mercy. And the last set.
Tekiah, Teruah, Tekiah, Tekiah, Teruah, Tekiah, Tekiah, Teruah, Tekiah Gedolah.
Asher ha'am yodea tru'ah. Happy is the people who hears the sounds of the tru'ah, for in the light of God's presence they walk. Okay, we got it. We got it. Joe, see, you did it. I know you can do the calls. Called shots, Marcella. Very good. Very good. We're going to leave these out because we're going to do another round. So catch your breath, Marcella. All right, now we're going to do share screen again. We come to the Hineni, and it's in the Master on page 78. But this version, very impressive version, it is by one of the great Chazanim and movie actors of the old Yiddish theater and film, Moshe Oisher. And this is from a movie where he plays a man who's a janitor. I believe he's a janitor, and then he's suddenly discovered as a great voice. And now he's doing the Hineni, and you can watch him walking up, as is traditional of the Chazan, to walk up to the bima to take his place. So, Moshe You can sense in this here what it was like in the old Shtibach. Everybody's in panic and fear. What's going to be happening? And the Chazan comes up, and he has to speak on their behalf, and he's full of anxiety, and it's coming through in his voice. Even if you don't know the words, you feel it in his tone. Now he carries the tremolo that goes in, the classic Chazanish tremolo that goes through, and then dramatic is ready for his position. Okay, so I don't claim to be a Moshe Oisher. I'm going to try to channel my inner Moshe Oisher. Continue page 79 with the Chatzi Kaddish that introduces the Musaf Amida, and then I have an opening for the Amida, which is a a Ladino choir, a cantorial group, opening it up. A very beautiful melody, Spanish-Italian in style, you'll hear it. So let me get this, page 79. We can get the page up so everybody can follow. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma Diberachirutei, Be'amlich Malchutei, Bechayechon, O Yomechon, O Bechayech, Dechol Beit Yisrael, Bagala Ovizman Karif Mimelo. Amen. Yehesh Merabba Mevorach Me'olam Olomeh Amaya Yitbarach Ve'yishtabach V'pa'ar v'tomam v'yitnasei v'yitadar v'yitaleh yitalav shmei kudusha berichu leila uleila min kol birchata v'shirata toshbechata b'nechemata damiran Be'ama b'mero, amen. I put up for you just the opening of the Midah. And those of you, it's page 80 and 81. But I'm going to put up on the screen, just there you have it for you. I'm going to put up on the screen this rendition. It's the opening of the Midah. And I'm going to here, and I go back to the beginning.
Adonai Sefatai.
Second. We have our greatest sister.
Adonai Sefatai Tiftach Ufiagid Tehilatecha Ufiagid Tehilatecha Baruch Ata Amunai Baruch Shemo Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor VeHaNorah El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim Koneh HaKol Vezocher Chazdei Avot ומי גואל לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה זוכרנו לחיים אל מלך חפץ בחיים כותבנו בספר חיים למלך אלוהים חיים אל חי מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני ברוך הוא ברוך שמו מגן אברהם
Okay, we're going to return to the Machzor now, page 81, and let's pick up at Zochreinu L'chaim. We'll sing it together. Page 81. Zochreinu L'chaim, Melech Hafetz B'chaim, Chatveinu B'Sefer HaChaim, Lemancha Elohim, Elohim Chaim Melech Ozel Moshe Magen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham Amen. Ata Giboho Leolam Adonai Hametim Ata Rav Lo Shia Mechakel Chaim Bechesed Mechayem Meitim Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Verofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Micha Mocha Ba'gevurot Umidom Melach Melech Meimit Chayam Atzmich Yeshua Micha Mocha Barachamim Zoche Yitzurav L'Chaim Berachamim Ne'emonato L'Chayot Meitim Baruch Atah Adonai Mechayeh HaMeitim. Now we come to Unatan Tokef, and again I'm going to go to a rendition here of Unatan Tokef. It's one after the other. You'll see this one. One is a cantor singing the classic Unatan Tokef. The great shofar is sounded, a still small voice is heard. All the angels are aligned in heaven. All of them aware of being accounted for. V'yad Adam, v'chotem kol yad Adam bo. Each human being has his or her signature on his deeds. Nobody else can fake it. Nor can you get away with signing off on somebody else's deeds. What you are responsible, you're accountable for. That sense of being accounted for our actions, so very important in this thing. And then it's going to transition. I have another cantor. It's going to sing the Rosh Hashanah, and she's including the Leonard Cohen poem into the Rosh Hashanah. So you'll listen to it. So I'm going to put that on for us next. I'm going to continue page 80.
Avoid And who by fire, who by water, who in the sunshine, who in the nighttime, who by high ordeal, who by common trial, who in your merry, merry month of May, who by very slow decay, and who shall I say, is calling?
Rendition, you can feel the power in the voice. And so, but we have an answer. Who shall I say is calling? We are calling. because we have the power in us. Tshuva utfila tzedakah ma'avirin ra'gzera. Tshuva utfila tzedakah ma'avirin ra'gzera. The ability to turn back to our better angels, the Yetzer Tov, not the Yetzer Ra, the one that gives us guidance from above. Utfila, praying to the one above, praying also for the ability to examine ourselves and evaluate ourselves. Utzedakah, doing that of right actions and right deeds in relation to our fellow human beings. When we do that, Ma'avirin ra'gzera, don't change meteorites falling from the sky, but we change our ability to deal with what we are dealt. The hand that we are dealt with. We are given the power to deal with it. That's what we have. So now we continue. We go to the Kedusha, page 85. You can put it on the screen, page 85. Okay, and we've got some people come backing on board. We've got our system working now. We've got Victor, our great sound assistant, making sure it's working correctly. And we're going to page 85. So please rise for the Kedusha. Kakatu vayad neviacha karozel ze v'yama kadosh 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 Adonai tzivot haaretz kivodo kivodo malei olam mishareto shalim ze laze ayeh mekom kivodo lematam baruch yomeru baruch kivod Adonai mimkomo hu yifen berachamim me'achon am Am yachadim shemo, ve'achonam, am yachadim shemo, erev avoker b'chol yom tamid, pamayim be'ava shema omrim, shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad, Eloheinu avinu malkeinu moshienu, oh yashmienu. Yashmienu berachamav, sheni b'nei kochai, liyod lachem le'elohim, ani Adonai lechem, adirenu, Adonai Adoneinu, ma'adir shemcha b'chol haaretz, v'yadon melech kol haaretz, v'yod me'echad u'shemo echad, u'b'nei kadshecha katuv le'mor, Yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elayich Tzion, Dovodo, Hallelujah. Ledovodo nagigad lechol netzach netzachim kishotcha nagdish, shevchacha lehinu mipinu le'mosh, le'mosh le'mekia melech gado v'kadosh ata baruch ata Adonai, Amelech HaKadosh. Amen. Now we're going to take 5 minutes for silent meditation. You may go through the text of the Machzor, read the prayers, the Hebrew, the English, any combination you wish, from page 87 over through 98. Let's take about a half minute of scrolling each page, not much longer than that, and then we're going to go to the highlights of the Musaf. To 98. 10 seconds. You may be seated when you finish. Okay, let's go back to page 85. Back to page 85 for a second, and it'll go back and reprise a few elements of this. Yeah, at the end, the very end of that page, Lidor Vador. We have a right there, and we have a choral rendition, the Rinach choir. Lidor Vador Neged Gadlacha. In each generation we shall sing thy praise. I have to put that on now. And here we are. Okay.
Salvador.
Notice it is by, there we go. The music by Cantor Finkelstein, I was in Houston over the weekend for Bar Mitzvah, Bat Mitzvah and the family, and he's the cantor there. So I told them we were relying on a lot of his material. So he gave us an okay. I have his okay to use his material. So we're clean with that. Okay, and so now my apologies to all the great cantors of the world where I'm borrowing from them, because I'm not pretending to be a cantor or vocalist. And we're going to go ahead now to the Aleinu, which is found on page. Hold on. Don't bother taking down the screen. Keep the screen up for a second, because we're going to go to the Grand Aleinu, which is found page 88 in the Siddur, but there's no sense to turn the page because I'm going to write to the screen again. So go ahead, open the ark, and go ahead. This is Cantor Schwartz, Ozzy Schwartz, from Park Avenue Synagogue. The Aleinu introduces the Malchuyot, the verses of declaration of God's kingship. And so it is the function of the Jew to act as God's servant on this earth, not as the ruler of the earth, but as the servant for God. And therefore we say, Aleinu l'shabbat. Therefore we give praise, that is our portion and our lot. This is our function as a Jew. We come into life, not completely as a free agent. We come into life with an expectation and a purpose. And the Aleinu reinforces that for us in our thinking. So that is important because at Rosh Hashanah, one of the great themes is that we recognize God's kingship in the universe, recognize the plan and purpose in existence. The universe is not, the word in Hebrew, hefker, ownerless, not useless. It is with purpose and guidance that it exists, and we're part of that. And so we continue now with the verses of kingship, the Susharim, and here again, Cantor Schwartz, this time he's singing in Berlin. The Susharim is on page 89 and 90. I played one version for you, which was the little Hasidic version. Now this is a much grander and dramatic version, as is appropriate for the declaration of the kingship of God. So Susharim, lift up your heads, O gate, that the King of glory may enter therein. Cantor from Park Avenue Synagogue. The screening taking place inside a church in Berlin. No, you couldn't miss the Jesus on the cross. And it is a reminder, it's sometimes fascinating how many wonderful Jewish compositions are taking place inside churches by Christian choirs, or in this case, the cantor with the choral, I guess, choir from the church. And a recognition in many streams of Christianity that they want to find their rootedness within the Jewish people, because Christianity grew out of the Jewish people, out of the biblical experience, and then Western Europe grew also, to a great extent, out of the input of the Jewish people in Western Europe. We're waiting for the day when, in the Muslim world, we'll see an increasing recognition of the input of Judaism into Islam and the connection between Judaism and the Islamic world. Some of that is taking place. When that happens in the same way, we're going to be in good shape. We continue, and then we really will have the kingship of God, as it says, on that day the name shall be one. The Lord will be one in his name one, which is a continuation, page 90, and then we're going to go 90 and 91 over to the first set of shofar blasts. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו echad. And the logical conclusion of this, the Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai echad. We continue at the top of the next page to wrap up the first set of blessings. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu b'imotenu meloch hakol olam b'chvodecha baruch atah Adonai melech hakol haaretz mekadesh Yisrael melech hakol haaretz mekadesh Yisrael melech hakol haaretz Amen. And now I need my caller, Joe. All right, the first set. It's the Tkiyah Shvarim to Tkiyah, then it's Tkiyah Shavarim. Page 91. Call the shot. Hayom harat olam, hayom yamid b'mishpat koyitzur olamim, im kevadim, rachmenu kachem av alabanim, v'im kavadim aleinu kachat liot, ad sh'chanenu tziyakor, mishpatenu ayom kadosh. This is the day of the world's birth. This day all creatures stand before you, whether as children or as servants. We are your children. Show us the Father's compassion. As we are servants, we look to you for mercy. Shed the light of your judgment upon us, O holy and awesome God. We continue now, 94. Now we come into the verses of remembrance, and we look at themes that reflect God recalling people in trouble in the past. As recalled Noah and spared him from the flood. We recalled Isaac, the binding, the offering of Isaac. And then the Jewish people, cast up as lost many times over and somehow still brought back. And so as we read in the Haftarah from Jeremiah, looking at the exiles being carried off in chains, and they pass the tomb of the great ancestress Rachel, and she doesn't want to be comforted. And so one of the verses here is God's words to Rachel, Haben Yakeli Ephraim, your son Ephraim, Joseph, the tribes, my dear child, Yeled Shashuim, a play child. And I play with him, and I remember him because my heart goes for him. I long for him, and I have mercy on him. So that is what we recall, page 94, Haben Yakeli. And then, there we go, we got the words. I'm going to pull up and again, properly, Haben Yakeli. So this is a child who's still playing. So here I have a child singing Haben Yakeli inside the old city wall. Amit Listan. The prayer books, page 94. We're going to go to the next set of shofar blasts, the blasts of remembrance. Page 94. Zacharti lahem. There we go. Zacharti lahem brit rishonim asher tzeitel me'eretz Mitzrayim le'nei hagoyim liot lehem Elohim ki zocher kol neshvichot atu me'olam ein shechol lefnei kisei kavodecha barkadat Yitzchak lezor hayom berachamim tizkor baruch atah Adonai zocher habrit. Amen. And the shofar. Need you to call again. May the sounds of the shofar be acceptable to your presence, O Lord. Blessed are you, the Master of Mercy. And we can, Areshet Sifatenu, and we can sing it together. Let's sing it together. Areshet Sifatenu, Yerav Lefanecha, Eram Benisa. Areshet Sifatenu, Yerav Lefanecha, Eram Benisa. Mevinu Mazin, Mabitu Makshif, Lekol Tekiateinu, Tkabe Berachamim, Rachamim Uvratzon, Seder, Seder, Zichronoteinu. Now we come to the last, the shofar blasts, those which we associate with the revelation of God at Sinai, the knowledge and wisdom of God presented to the Jewish people, and then the same shofar that will be blasted at the end of days to call the final redemption of the people of Israel, redemption of the world and of the universe. And so we continue the Hallelujah, Psalm 150, and I have this version of the Hallelujah from a church in somewhere in Africa.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
I think, let me just check the group, I think it's out of Nigeria. Nigeria has a large, let me see if I'm correct. Nigeria has a large Christian population, the Igbos, Biafra, if you remember that many years ago, the war between the Muslim and the Christians there. And out of the Igbo, there's a group, a significant group that identify as Jews out of that, that community. So that is for us, the hallelujah that we share with so many people around the world. So we call for the day when a great shofar will be sounded, and those who are lost in the land of Assyria, those who are exiled in the land of Egypt, will return to worship the Lord upon his holy mountain in Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, shomea kol tfilat amo Yisrael berachamim. Continue, page 95, and then we go on to 96. 95 and 96. So I need my shofar blowers again. Last set, this time we have to do it right. Absolutely right, on tone, on pitch, full blast. Go ahead, Joe. Let's try it in. Aresh tzifateinu yerav lefanecha eram benisa. Aresh tzifateinu yerav lefanecha eram benisa. Mazinu mabitu makib lekol shofroteinu tkaber berachamim uvratzon seder shofroteinu. We continue now through the Machzor, page 96. We give praise to you. We thank you, God, that you are our God and God of our ancestors, the rock of our lives, the defender and protector. In each generation we shall sing your praise. We continue page 97. Baruch Adonai, amach shechinato leTzion. V'kulam yitbarach v'tamam shemcha makenu t'milabed. Uchtov l'chaim tovim kol b'nei britecha v'chol l'chaim yeducha sela v'yalu et shemcha be'emet. Yeshuateinu v'zetenu sela. Baruch atah Adonai atov shemcha v'nei lahodot. Praise are you, O Lord, who is good and whose name is good and who is wonderful and deserving of all praise. And we continue, Sim Shalom, and I have here Cantor Schwartz to lead us in Sim Shalom. Let's go ahead. I'll find it. Okay.
Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom, Tova uvracha, Chen v'chesed v'rachamim, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amecha.
Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom, Tova uvracha,
Chen v'chesed ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל עמך.
ברכנו אבינו כולנו כאחד באור פניך, כי באור פניך נתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו. שים שלום, שים שלום, שים שלום, שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל עמך. תורת חיים, תורת חיים, ואהבת חסד וצדקה וברכה ורחמים וחיים ושלום.
שים שלום,
שים שלום,
שים שלום,
שים שלום,
שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים
עלינו ועל כל ישראל עמך.
וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך.
שים שלום,
שים שלום,
שים שלום,
שים שלום,
שים שלום, טובה
וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל עמך. שים שלום, שים שלום,
שים שלום,
שים שלום,
שים שלום,
טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל עמך.
ברוך אתה אדוני
המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום. שים שלום,
שים שלום, שים שלום.
So we're coming close to the end of our service. At the very end, I have an interview with Richard Hirschhout, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it on, it's pre-recorded, and feel free to take a cup of coffee and sit and listen, and then we'll break up and make Kiddush together after that. So we're going to wrap up the service, page 98, go back to the Machzor, page 98, and B'Sefer Chaim. This page 98. Let's sing together. B'Sefer Chaim Beracha V'Shalom U'Panasa Tova Nizacher V'Nikatev Lefanecha Anachnu V'Chol Amcha Beit Yisrael L'chaim tovim, l'chaim tovim, u'l'shalom. Baruch atah Adonai, oseh hashalom. Amen. And we continue page 99, a very glorious and happy conclusion for the Musaf with Hayom Ta'amtzenu. Ayom Tansin. Ayom, 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 Te'amtzeinu. Amen. Ayom, 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 Avacheinu, Amen, Amen. Ayom, 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 tigadlenu, Amen, Amen. Ayom, 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 tideshenu litova, Amen. Ayom, 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 tichveinu lechayim tovim, Amen. Ayom, 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 tikvei avrachamim uvratzon et tefilateinu, Amen. Ayom, 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 tishma Shabbateinu, Amen. Ayom, 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 titmecheinu b'min tzidkecha, Amen. Kaddish Shalem, Yitgaral v'Yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, Yom Adivrach Yirutei, V'yam Lich Machutei V'chai Chorvim V'chol Bet Yiseh Bagal Zman Kedivim, Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevorach, Le'olam Omer Maya, Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'par V'tumam Yitnasei, V'yitadar V'yitadar Shmei Kudsha Berichu, Leila Min Kol B'chata V'shirata, Tush B'chata V'nechmata, Damiram B'yomah B'mromein, Tikabel Sonazon, the Choyser, Kodum V'nishmai B'mromein, Yehi Shlomo Rabba Min Shemaya V'chayim Alenu Kurse B'mromein, Ose Shalom B'mromav, Huyase Shalom, Alenu Kurse V'yimeru, Amen. Enke Laheinu, all together, regular old-fashioned Enke. Enke Loheinu, Enke Adonenu, Enke Malkeinu, Enke Moshienu, Miach Eloheinu, Miach Adonenu, Miach Malkeinu, Miach Moshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shekiru Avoteinu, Lefanecha Eketoret Asamihim. And we continue page 101. Aleinu, Aleinu Lishabeach Ladon Hakol, La Tekiru La Liotzeir Breshit, Shelo Asanikye Haratzot, Velo Samanut Mishpachot Adama, Shelo Samchelkeinu Kahem, Vigar Aleinu Kecho Hamonam, Vanachnu Korim, Umishtachavim, Umodim, Lifnei Melech, Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shunot Hashamayim v'Yosed Haaretz, Moshe v'Karov b'Shamayim Imal, Ushchinatu zo b'Gavei Meromim, U'Eloheinu ein od, Ememakenu efesu lato, Kakatu b'Torato, Yadata yom v'ashivota elevavecha, Ki Adonai hu Elohim, B'Shamayim imal, V'Alaretz mitachat. We continue on the bottom. For this day, we look forward to the time when the worship of idolatry will be destroyed, and all people will come to recognize that to the divine, their loyalty, whatever the faith and whatever the pattern and language. At one point, we do look for a unity of all that exists, and we continue page 101. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz v'yom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo U'Shemo Echad. We continue now with the Monas Kaddish. We have the names of those who we're recalling it this season. We add on our thoughts those people who died flooded in their own homes in the East Coast, the path of the hurricane. We look at all the sad victims of terror around the world and pray for them that the Mamshelet Zadon, the rulers of iniquity, will be vanquished and disappear. And for our own people, we are calling it this season. Remember loved ones who passed away this preceding year: Elaine Goldsmith, Irma Smith. Yeah. Hold on 1 second. That's it. Elaine Goldsmith, Irma Smith, Margalit Sadok, and Miriam Budai. Miriam, the mother of our cantor, who was here. He joined us in the midst of his morning, still was with us yesterday, and will be with us again for Yom Kippur. And we remember those loved ones whose yahrzeits occurred at this time: Alec Jason, Norman Frankfurt, Fortuny Sassoon, Mazal Tov Bat Shlomo. Okay. And so we're going to turn to page 102 for the Monas Kaddish. Yitkadal, Yitkadash Shemei Rabba, V'yama Divrach Yirutei, V'yamlich Malchutei, Chayichon, V'yamichon, V'chayei D'chol, Beit Yisrael, V'agalav Zman Karivim Ramein, Yehei Shmei Rabbo Mevorach Le'olam L'Memaya, Yibarach, V'yishtabach, V'yipa'ar, V'yitamar V'yitnasei, V'yitadar, V'yitalev, V'yithalal Shemei D'Kudsha Berichu, Leila U'Leila Min Kol Birchata V'shirata, Tush B'chata V'nechemata, Demrem B'yoma V'yamain, Yehei Shlomo Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu V'koysim B'yamain, Oseh Shalom B'imamav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, V'koysim B'imru, Amen. May the one who makes peace in the heavens above grant peace unto us and to all people, all Israel. Let us all say Amen. Amen. So announcements. We're going to do the Yigdal for the conclusion, and then I'm going to put up a presentation that I have with Richard Hirschhout, the Los Angeles director of the American Jewish Committee, whose father-in-law was Alex Satmari. As you will recall, he would always sit in the front row. And so he was going to talk about what are the issues facing the Jewish world today. I asked him, what topics would you talk on? And he says, well, wait, when we get to it, we'll know what's happening, because every day something new is happening. And then while it's playing, we can put it on if you want to stop and have a coffee till we finish with that, and then go and make Kiddush together. Saturday, Shabbat service, 10 o'clock. As usual, it is Shabbat Shuvah. The Shabbat we focus on ourselves. I'll have some readings appropriate for that. It is also September 11th, 20 years to the date of the destruction of the Twin Towers, the attack of the Pentagon, that got us into the mess that we are in till today. Hopefully, we pull out of Afghanistan. Maybe we're getting out of the mess, but who knows? And then next week, Wednesday evening, called Midray, 7 o'clock, and the Musaf service, the Yom Kippur Torah service, and then the Musaf and Yizkor service will be then Thursday morning, 10 o'clock, wrapping again around 1 o'clock, and we'll have a presentation, guest presentation again recorded on reaching out to the non-Jewish world as well as to the Jewish world about Jewish values. Then we have Ne'ilah, which we have prepared for you in advance. You're going to follow Ne'ilah, not on Zoom, but on Facebook and YouTube, and will be available with my comments on the afternoon Torah reading at 5:30, then the Ne'ilah at 6:30. So that's the agenda for the coming week. And so let's go ahead. We're going to do a Yigdal, and I have a singer, a wonderful singer here for us for Yigdal. So we're going to go ahead, listen to her. 1 second. Let me get the speaker. Okay. Oh, yes, Sova. Go ahead, talk to the mic. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I don't live that far away from the SOFA office on Pico, and I see the lines. I see the lines when they open. And apparently they welcome all donations. And I know when you go shopping for groceries, you're buying stuff for your household. But what I've done in the past is I'll go and I'll see a case of something, and I'll just buy the whole case and I'll donate it to SOFA, and they're always happy to have it. So a number of people have suggested, you go to the 99-cent store, you go to Smart and Final or someplace like that, buy things to donate to SOFA, and they're always happy to have it. Plus, they also want toiletries and things like that. So from what I have seen, being that I see the lines, they welcome all donations, and they are really hurting for donations now. So please bring something in on Yom Kippur. Bring something in for the SOFA box back there, and it will get to SOFA.
Thank you for that reminder. Yes, very important. We have the box here. And they also take donations, cash donations as well. And I think they're also looking always for volunteers also and help with the delivery of food. We go ahead with Yigdal. This rendition by Ofri Eliaz. It's a Ladino melody, but you're probably familiar with it. Second. Okay. What are we going to do now? Is all of you watching on Zoom, I'm going to just start up. I'm going to put on the presentation with Richard. And then, as I said, go ahead, feel free to take something, a cup of coffee, something like that. Then sit down and watch the presentation. And then we'll do the Kiddush together afterwards. So all of you that are at home watching, also go get something to sip while we have this on. I'm going to put on Richard right now. Next one.
Matt,
Richard.
Hi, Rabbi Norbert.
Good afternoon. How are you doing, Richard?
Very well. It's nice to see you.
Okay, great. How was Hawaii?
Oh, beautiful. We had not been in about 30 years, and I think forgot just how spectacular and beautiful a place it is. And this time we had the kids with us for the first time.
Very nice.
It was very nice. Yeah.
All right. So this is being recorded. I hope you don't mind people know that you're in Hawaii. If not, I'll try to trim it.
That's all right.
That's okay. Good, good. So we're recording this as part of our Rosh Hashanah learning material, and it's going to be part of the second day of Rosh Hashanah format. And I'm happy to have Richard Hirschhout with me here on this session. Richard is director of the American Jewish Committee of Los Angeles, here in Los Angeles, the branch in Los Angeles, been in that position for about, 2 years now?
Exactly 2 years.
Very good. And you came into this position, oh my gosh, just coming right into a great pandemic lockdown with all the social turmoil, the protests, the demonstrations, the lockdowns, everything. So you've had your handful, huh?
It's been a challenging time for everyone, and thankfully and God willing, we are all healthy and we'll truly have a Shana Tova Umetuka.
Okay, just a little bit about American Jewish Committee. It's the global advocacy organization representing the Jewish community, and Richard has been doing the footwork here in the Los Angeles area with all of our Jewish connections. He was previously with the American Anti-Defamation League, the Illinois Holocaust Museum, and other major Jewish organizations. So he brings with him a very, very good record and track. And so I'm very happy that we have this connection. Those of you may know that Richard's father-in-law was one of our old veteran members here and passed away just a few years ago, Alex Satmari, and Richard's wife, Susan, the daughter of Alex, right? So very, very pleased to have you with us. So I'm going to go right to the chase, and we came up with a few ideas to cover. And like you said yourself, when we started talking about this, I said, well, what should we cover? He says, wait till the day before because everything changes. So and a lot of things have shifted. But we'll go to the first thing, which is, and this is a personal concern for me because I have a granddaughter who's at UC San Diego. And luckily, the atmosphere at UC San Diego has been very, very good. She hasn't had any pressure. But we see students in other universities feeling very, very great pressure to deny their Jewishness or to deny any kind of attachment to Israel, having scholarships actually canceled, being denied referral letters by faculty. So we have some big challenges. Can you zero in on that for us, please?
Of course. And first of all, let me say, Rabbi, Shana Tova to you, to the entire congregation. It is always an honor and a privilege and a joy to speak to the congregation, as you so thoughtfully mentioned, my father-in-law, blessed memory, Alex Satmary, and mother-in-law, Violet Satmary, both enjoyed so much Hollywood Temple Bethel, and it's a pleasure to be with all of you, and I hope everyone will indeed enjoy a healthy, sweet, and safe new year. With that, what I will share is, particularly with respect to the college campuses, as we know, students are returning to campuses, some still virtual, some hybrid, and many back in person. And they are returning to different climates on their campuses. We have come off a season last spring and into the early summer of, as we all know, the escalation of conflict between Hamas and Israel, a mini war that lasted 11 days, and that was followed by severe episodes of anti-Semitism coast to coast, from Los Angeles to New York and many points in between. And on the college campus, it becomes a much more magnified and intensified environment. All too often, the extremes are represented on the college campus, and Jewish students are caught in the crosshairs of the so-called woke crowd, social justice warriors, of whom many Jewish students wish to participate and wish to be part of, and indeed have been part of social justice movement, the social justice movements of the last year and a half. But when it comes to Israel, when it comes to being a Zionist, when it comes to being someone who loves and feels that Israel is essential to their core identity, oftentimes that's where they are shut out of the conversation and pushed out of belonging to that larger group who care about wanting to create a better world. And so it really is a moment of awakening for students. And I think there is much that we can do as parents, as grandparents, and the students themselves on campus to reach out to campus administrators, whether that's through the Alumni Relations Department, which will surely find you when it becomes time for the annual campaign, or whether it's through the Hillel. The Hillel organizations have been stellar, have absolutely been outstanding on campuses around the country, and we partner very closely with Hillel. But it's important to make our voices heard and to help give the administrators, from presidents to chancellors across the board, the courage and the wherewithal to recognize anti-Jewish hate when they see it, to recognize when criticism of Israel crosses a line into anti-Semitism, and it's really not hard to distinguish that line, and to assure that Jewish students are able to learn and be part of their campus community, free from intimidation, free from intolerance, free from hate. And this is all too often a moving target, and it requires our steady, constant, daily vigilance and communication with students and with Hillel and with campus administrators. This is the work that is before us. AJC is in the midst, as we meet today, of organizing a campus administrators project interchange mission to Israel. It's something we've done in the past. University presidents have taken part. And when it is safe to go, when COVID protocols will allow, we will make that journey happen. And we already have several campus administrators, senior campus officials, who have pledged their support and their commitment to joining on that mission.
How do you explain this obsession in certain faculties with erasing Israel? So that, or I might expect certain Mideastern studies to be influenced by faculty members who are from Arab countries. I might expect it, but I see it here. Women gender studies faculties, middle language faculties. It becomes an obsession. How do you explain that obsession when people are supposed to be open-minded and supposed to present a balanced approach to issues? That's academics.
What all too often happens is that the source of these insidious, particularly anti-Israel elements on campus coming out of faculty themselves are Jewish, and in perhaps out of a sense of wanting to be seen as completely academically independent and neutral, if there is such a thing, some of these academics will go out of their way to pillory Israel and to show that Israel can be criticized as much as any other country. And let me be clear on this. There is nothing inherently anti-Semitic about criticizing a particular Israeli government policy or action. As we both know, this is Israel is probably the most participatory democracy on the face of the earth. However, when that criticism, and this all too often happens, veers into questioning the very legitimacy, the very right of the Jewish state to exist among the family of nations, then we have waded into the waters of anti-Semitism. And we have a particular problem when it comes to faculty on campus. And again, part of what emboldens faculty is that holy grail known as tenure. That once a professor reaches tenure, they are effectively inoculated against any punitive action being taken against them in the classroom. It takes an awful lot to be able to rein in an academic who is hell-bent on pursuing an extremist agenda. And so it becomes a vicious cycle, frankly. And what we care about most is the climate of learning in the classroom. How does that affect, how does that pollute an environment that should be open, with open inquiry and genuine inquisitiveness and learning that we want to see on a college campus? This ultimately stifles that kind of academic freedom. That is the terrible irony of all of this.
You know, I am a student of history, studied Soviet and Russian history in college, and I can't help but thinking of the fact that Jews have been woke for a long time and always get it on the neck from both sides for being woke. And that the worst, for example, in the early years of the Soviet Union were what was called the Yevsektia, the Jewish section, whose job was to root out any Jews that had any kind of Jewish identification or affiliation. And then they themselves were purged and killed off when they were no longer useful. And it's very scary.
It's very scary, and I think it's an appropriate analogy to those who thought they could sit out and be on the sidelines, neutral to the just constant barrage of criticism that Israel was receiving during this last mini war, and the anti-Semitism that followed, that somehow was seen as justified or at a minimum not worthy of deploring and condemning, because its root cause was seen as Israel's so-called aggression during that conflict.
Okay, good, very good, thank you. So now that takes us, we're talking about college students. Now let's go to high school and middle school students. We have passed by the State Assembly a bill that in and of itself is very good, which said we should add ethnic studies. California is a state, it's almost a country by its economy and size, which is composed of people, so many different backgrounds. And our young people should know what was the experience, both the ups and the downs, both the hardships and then also the achievements. But it was turned into a hate fest in which it was focused only on a few minorities that seemed to be the highlighted minorities. Everybody else was ignored. Jews were ignored. Armenians were ignored. Southeast Asians were ignored. And they're like their preferred minorities, and all the grievances were put. And for example, in the case of the African American students, Dr. King and Abernathy and all the great people who fought for civil rights were ignored completely, and only the firebrands like Malcolm X were mentioned in this curriculum. And then on top of that, of course, it may use the Arab population here in California, people of Arab origin, as an excuse to pillory the Jewish community. So my understanding is it's been modified with a lot of fights. The people who originally set it up quit because they were angry that they didn't get to have their hobby horse. But there's a fear, as I understand, that school districts may still adopt the original program. What's happening with that?
So to your point, tremendous strides were made in the what became 4 distinct versions over a period of more than 2 years. This is really what greeted me when I arrived in Los Angeles 2 years ago, was that first draft of the model ethnic studies curriculum. It landed with a colossal thud and had all of the problems that you've identified. The 4th iteration ultimately carried favor and passed muster with the State Board of Education last spring, and it's pretty good. It's far from perfect. If we had perhaps started from scratch after that first horrific version landed, we might have come away with a better final product. But be that as it may, with all of the horse trading and pushing and pulling that went on over these last couple of years, the final product is pretty good. Where we now stand is exactly to your point, with individual school boards who will be required to adopt the curriculum. And some of those early architects, that the early drafters who have since washed their hands of the curriculum, are still out there. And they are parading their wares to individual school boards and asking that they adopt what they are referring to as liberatory ethnic studies. So essentially the first version, not the version that the State Board of Education passed. So as we gather today, the Illinois, forgive me, I still think I'm in Chicago. The California legislature, that's what 21 years will do in one place. The California legislature is considering Assembly Bill 101, which will make the teaching of ethnic studies a requirement for graduation from all public schools in the state of California, public high schools. So we are in the midst of trying to wordsmith and add some guardrails, some safeguards to that legislation that will require individual school districts to only use the official version that wound its way through 4 iterations and that ultimately was adopted by the State Board of Education. So we are hopeful that AB 101, which has the votes to pass, it will be a fait accompli in California, will at least contain language that assures and provides some comfort and certainty that the teaching of ethnic studies will in fact be inclusive and broad and reflect the rich mosaic of diversity that is our state.
I have a lot of fear about some of the local districts. San Francisco School District came out, the members of the board came out with absolutely bizarre statements during the course of this year. And the union spent its efforts in attacking Israel. And now UTLA has a proposition also on the board put by not a majority, a small community out of UTLA, but to lambast and blame Israel for everything wrong in education. I put it that way. And I don't know how to swallow this union, because I just saw an interview, it came out just recently, with the head of the teachers union, saying, no, that the children, for example, lost while they were in lockdown. They didn't lose anything. No, they learned resilience and they learned survival. They learned critical thinking skills. And they learned the word insurrection and coup. And somewhere here, somebody is not connecting. I spent 20 years in the field of private education, correcting the damages done to children in the formal classroom setting, both public and private school. And if I want to teach children resilience, I would send them to your father-in-law's slave camp to teach resilience,
right?
Not lock them out of the schools. So how do we deal with the school district like this? How do we deal with the teachers union like this?
Well, I think it's important to distinguish between the school board. So in this case, let's leave San Francisco to the side. I served with ADL for 8 years in San Francisco. It is a community unlike any other. When it's good, it's wonderful. When it's not good, it's a little cuckoo. But focusing on Los Angeles Unified School District has actually had an ethnic studies curriculum in place now for a few years. The state could have saved a whole lot of aggravation in Souris by simply looking to the LA model, which is thoughtful, incremental, subject to evaluation along the way. It's really a good and time-tested way to teach ethnic studies. So that said, the school district here is distinct from the union. The union tends to skew a little left, particularly some of its more fringe elements. And in a few days, LA Unified or UTLA, forgive me, United Teachers of Los Angeles, will be voting upon a resolution that, if passed, will put them on record in support of BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions. Now, what the United Teachers of Los Angeles has to do with the BDS movement is simply beyond my comprehension, but they've somehow found that a relevant subject. San Francisco, just to go back there for a moment, their union put it forward, passed it almost unanimously, literally in a 24-hour period. This has been a much more of a slow cooker here in Los Angeles. We are working in coalition with the Federation, with ADL, with several other organizations to present a unified front, and working with parents and teachers to see that this goes down to defeat. It's possible that it will be defeated on September 14th. It's possible that it will be deferred a few months down the road for later consideration. And there is the slim possibility that it could carry. We tend to think that it will not. But I do think it's just important to separate out the more responsible voices of the school board themselves. School board member Schmerlson, for example, put forward a resolution that passed unanimously 6 weeks ago, putting LA Unified on record against anti-Semitism. This clearly was a shot across the bow against what the mischief making that's afoot with UTLA. So we were very, very pleased to see that resolution come forward. And I think our challenge is to always try to seek out the responsible voices and try to overcome the more extreme elements who are entitled to their point of view, of course, but to legislate anti-Semitism, to legislate anti-Israel invective is simply unacceptable.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And one last topic, like you said, we never know what happens till it happens. So sadly, we've gone through a tragedy where 13 Marines, most of them from the California area, were killed by terrorists as they were trying to save lives in Afghanistan. We have this withdrawal from Afghanistan, a precipitous collapse of the government of Afghanistan, And we're all worried about implications across the board in terms of the standing of the United States. How does it look to the world? And will other countries now still trust us for guarantees? One of the, obviously, the concerns is with the safety for the state and people of Israel. I was just in Israel this summer. Had to get tested before I got on the plane, get tested after I got on the plane, get tested for blood tests so I wouldn't have to be locked in the room, get tested leaving the country. So they have enough trouble just with the virus. They still have Hamas on the border now, testing them with crowds trying to break through the barriers, actions like that. And we also have new government, new approach. And we have the Abraham Accords, and those had a lot of promise. And looking at this now, do they still hold up? Is Israel's position in the Middle East stronger or weaker? What do you say?
Well, just a word first about the exit from Afghanistan. It is something that our government, the U.S. government, has been forecasting and awaiting. This was America's longest war. The exit was done in a way that has left many of us feeling as though there was a lack of careful coordination and planning. I mean, ultimately, people have been rescued, more than 100,000 airlifted out, and we as Jews can certainly relate to the plight of Afghans who are seeking safe harbor and seeking refuge, and that's a guiding principle that should underscore this next phase of helping refugees settle and resettle and find new lives and a new home here in the U.S. and other freedom-loving democratic countries. With respect to Israel, I would postulate that the new government, now a few months old, is holding pretty steady. It's certainly not a unity government, but it is a government that reflects the diversity and the true democratic nature of Israel, having everything from prime minister's party, which is far to the right, to an Islamist party, all under that same tent as part of this ruling government. That, to my mind, is a great message to the world about Israel's democracy, Israel's resilience, and the strength of the country's character and democratic foundations and principles. We are about to celebrate the one-year anniversary of the Abraham Accords. An early test of the Accords was, in fact, the Hamas-Israel conflict, and the UAE is the most prominent partner in the Accords, stood firm in support and squarely behind Israel. Now, that doesn't come without a message, and a message that the long festering Israel-Palestinian conflict still must be addressed. Ultimately, there needs to be a peaceful and satisfactory and equitable resolution of that conflict. And already, Prime Minister Bennett and his cabinet are making overtures to the Palestinians and at least finding ways, if not to discuss a final resolution of the conflict, at least finding ways to relate better to one another and work through some of the day-to-day realities of life in the region. So that's an encouraging and hopeful sign. But I would say to you and to the congregation that what we've seen over this last year is tremendously inspiring and hopeful as it relates to the Abraham Accords. More than 100,000 Israelis have visited UAE. We know Israelis love to travel, and they wasted no time going to visit Abu Dhabi and to be in UAE. And we're seeing exchanges of diplomats. We're seeing cultural exchanges. We're seeing life-saving organ transplants happening now between UAE and Israel. And so all of the, whether it's economic, educational, high tech, and governmental, we're seeing really the flowering of what should be a permanent, long-term, beautiful, evolving relationship. And so that to me is probably the best news when we think about Israel in the world and the state of U.S.-Israel and Israel global relations. The Abraham Accords have held up very well.
Yeah, that's why I find so ironic that Israel has now increasingly good relations with so many states in Africa. Israel is now warming up relations with Morocco. Egypt has a long-standing relationship. Jordan has. The countries that don't have warm relationship with Israel are the ones that are in the process of falling at each other's throats, like Lebanon, Syria. That's the irony. So in the rest of the world, Israel is fine. It is being made into a pariah state. Here, by people who have no idea what's going on there. That's why it's so bizarre.
Well, and I think our challenge to that point, we have a lot of work to do in the new year to reach out to folks who are more left of center. Frankly, it's very easy for us to identify because they identify themselves, the right-wing extremists and the crazies for what they are. We need to take them seriously, and we know that their hate and their anti-Semitism is longstanding and cemented. It's the folks on the left who do care about a better world. I said earlier, use the comment, the social justice warriors, the folks who were marching in the streets after the brutal murder of George Floyd. We marched with them as well. It doesn't mean we are all going to join Black Lives Matter, but we certainly can support the slogan and the phrase because it is a human value and it's something we should align ourselves with. But these are folks who don't have, and I'm generalizing here, but by and large, a full picture of Israel, a full understanding of what Israel means to our own collective psyche as Jews, the sense of identity and connection that we have to Israel. And Israel doesn't have to be perfect. That's the other piece of it. I would encourage the congregation, when you're meeting with friends or neighbors or co-workers or those who may have not had the blessing of a personal connection to Israel or a visit to Israel ever in their lifetime, share a little bit about your own experience. Discuss why Israel is so important to you. And it may help to open their eyes. It may help them read an LA Times article a little bit differently, or perhaps a little more critically. And it may help them look beyond mere simplistic headlines that easily make, that tend all too often to make Israel the boogeyman.
Okay, you're very, very right. Thank you. In fact, I'm going to be having a conversation online in a few weeks with an Israeli theoretician, we'll call it, who's talking about finding ways to bridge the gap between Israelis and Palestinians. So when we talk about, right, the difference between attacking Israel and its right to exist altogether, and the difference between talking about, well, what do we fix? How do we fix? Oh, here's an attempt, right? How can we bring people together that are at such odds? And it affects us in the United States without any question. So that I'll have more information about that later on. Richard, I want to thank you so very much. Been a very great conversation.
My pleasure
Always,
Rabbi.
you're doing You're doing work in the trenches for us.
Well, I feel the love and the support of you and the congregation, and we all have our part to do. And may we enjoy strength and good health and peace and safety to be able to carry on this important work in the new year.
Thank you very much. A good year, a sweet year to you, to your family, to everyone. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova. Thank you.
I'm going to open my. All right, go ahead. Say goodbye. Yeah. Oh, I'm just going to give a goodbye to everybody. Give me 1 second. Okay, I'm going to give my goodbye to everybody. Wish everybody a good year. Shana Tova. Shana Tova to everybody. And you can watch this again still on Facebook and YouTube as well. So everybody have a good year. Shana Tova. Shana Tova.